My name is Dustin, and I'm a 35-year-old engineer working at a local company. I used to be married to Kathy, who is 3 years younger than me. Together, we have a 6-year-old son named Ron, who means the world to me. Life was stable and predictable, with a decent job and what I thought was a happy family. Kathy and I met through a mutual friend who thought we'd make a good match. They were right, at least for a while. After 3 years of dating, we got married. Our honeymoon in Phuket, Thailand, was unforgettable, though even then, I noticed small things about her that would later come back to haunt me. I brushed off the red flags, thinking they were harmless quirks. Kathy's fascination with fitness, for instance, was one of her defining traits. She was always at the gym, determined to maintain her health and physique, and I admired that about her. When she got pregnant with Ron, I was overjoyed. I made it my mission to care for her. I cooked for her, sometimes even brought her meals in bed, and did everything I could to keep her happy, believing, as my mother told me, that a happy pregnancy leads to a happy, healthy child. After Ron was born, my focus shifted. I worked harder, trying to build a financial cushion for my growing family. Life became a grind, but I didn't mind. For my wife and son, I was willing to bear the burden. Things started to change when Ron turned 5. Kathy went back to the gym, determined to shed the weight she'd gained during pregnancy. Within 2 months, she transformed. She dropped 20 pounds and looked incredible, but something about her energy felt different. When I asked her about it, she said it was thanks to her new martial arts training. Inspired, I returned to my old gym, hoping to get back into shape too. However, my progress wasn't as rapid as hers, and when I asked if I could join her sessions, she told me the class was full. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Looking back, that was when everything started to fall apart. As the weeks went by, I noticed more subtle changes in Kathy. She became distant, spending longer hours at the gym, often coming home late. I tried to convince myself it was all innocent. After all, she was committed to her fitness goals. Then one day, a peculiar incident stuck with me. The receptionist at my office told me a man had come looking for me. When I asked about him, she described an Asian guy with a neck tattoo. I couldn't think of anyone matching that description and shrugged it off. Not long after, Kathy surprised me with front-row tickets to a Muay Thai match. She said her trainer was competing. It was odd, she'd never shown much interest in sports before. Still, I went along, thinking it might be fun. When her trainer entered the ring, I recognized him immediately. He was the guy the receptionist had described, the Asian man with the tattoo on his neck. I laughed at the coincidence, but something about the whole situation felt strange. During the match, Kathy's trainer easily dominated his opponent, knocking him out in seconds. The crowd roared, and Kathy looked ecstatic. I excused myself for a moment, but when I returned, I saw her hugging him. My stomach twisted. Trying to stay calm, I asked her about it later, and she brushed it off as a casual, celebratory hug. She seemed annoyed that I even brought it up and accused me of ruining her mood. I let it go, thinking I was being too sensitive. That night, I woke up to find Kathy missing from our bed. I found her in the kitchen, standing naked with her phone on the table. She said she was recording something for me, a gesture to make up for our earlier argument. Her explanation didn't sit right, but I wanted to believe her. We reconciled that night in an intimate, passionate way, and for a brief moment, I thought we'd reconnected. I was foolish to think that was the end of it. The next day, my life took another blow. As I left the gym after training, I noticed a man approaching me in the parking lot. It was Kathy's trainer. Without hesitation, he said, "I love your wife. I make love to her every day, twice a day, and send her home with my seed. Leave her, or I'll beat you up right here." I froze, trying to process what he'd just said. My training partners saw the confrontation and came over, but I waved them off, determined to handle this myself. I demanded the man clarify his claims, but instead, he started taunting me, calling Kathy his love and saying she belonged to him. Then, he raised his fists and prepared to fight. I couldn't believe the audacity. This man, barely 150 pounds, was challenging me, a former high school wrestler standing at 6 feet 3 inches and 260 pounds. He threw the first punch, cutting my eyebrow, but that was the last strike he landed. I took him down with a double-leg slam, his body crashing against the concrete. When he got up, I slammed him again, this time onto the hood of his car. The metal dented under the impact. He lay crumpled, humiliated and silent. My friends, who had recorded the fight, assured me they'd back me up if he tried to file a complaint. But this wasn't over yet. If anything, it was just the beginning. When I got home, I confronted Kathy. I showed her the video of the fight and asked her to explain. At first, she looked horrified, not at what her trainer said or did, but at the beating he took. She shouted at me, asking why I'd attacked him. That's when I lost my temper. I repeated every word her trainer had told me and demanded the truth. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed. She said it started with harmless flirting, then escalated into something physical. Her excuse: curiosity. She wanted to see if Asian men were better in bed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My wife, the woman I had devoted my life to, had thrown away everything for some ridiculous fantasy. She tried to downplay it, calling it meaningless, just physical. She begged me to forgive her, saying she still loved me and our family. But her words rang hollow. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I simply picked up the phone and called her mother. I told her everything. Kathy screamed at me for involving her family, but I didn't care. She'd already shattered our marriage. Now it was time for the consequences. I told her to pack her things and leave the house. She sobbed, pleading with me to think of our son, but it was too late. I couldn't unhear her betrayal. Before leaving, I made one thing clear. I would report her trainer to his gym and make sure he lost his job. If he loved her as much as he claimed, maybe he could take her back to Thailand with him. By the next day, Kathy was gone. She left with her mother, taking Ron with her. After Kathy left, I felt hollow, but I wasn't done cleaning up the mess she'd made. First, I followed through on my promise to report her trainer. I sent a detailed email to his gym, attaching the video of our fight and explaining his involvement with Kathy. The gym management responded swiftly, firing him and cutting ties with him as a fighter. Word spread in the underground fight scene, and his reputation took a hit. He lost his sponsorships, and I heard he was forced to leave town. One small victory in the wreckage of my life. But the fallout at home was devastating. Kathy filed for divorce and demanded custody of Ron. Despite everything she'd done, the court sided with her. They granted her full custody, citing stability for Ron, and awarded her the house. I was left paying child support and barely scraping by, renting a small apartment. Every time I saw my son, I felt a mix of joy and deep sadness. He didn't understand why his parents weren't together anymore, and I couldn't explain without breaking his heart. Kathy, on the other hand, seemed unbothered. She moved on quickly, but she didn't cut ties with me completely. She had to, for Ron's sake, but every interaction with her felt like pouring salt on an open wound. I couldn't look at her without hearing her excuses and imagining her with that trainer. She'd destroyed everything we built, yet she carried on as if nothing had happened. I threw myself into work, trying to find some sense of purpose. But the weight of betrayal lingered. Nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, replaying the events in my mind, the hug at the Muay Thai match, her naked in the kitchen, the confrontation with her trainer. It was like a movie I couldn't turn off, no matter how hard I tried. One day, Ron innocently asked me why Mommy didn't live with us anymore. His question shattered me. I didn't want to lie to him, but I couldn't tell him the truth either. I simply said that grown-ups sometimes have disagreements they can't fix. It felt like such a weak answer, but what else could I say to a 6-year-old? The worst part was the loneliness. Every time I thought about moving on or starting fresh, my mind circled back to Kathy's betrayal. I couldn't imagine trusting anyone again. The idea of opening up to someone, only to be hurt like this, was unbearable. Dating felt impossible, not just because of my shattered confidence, but also because I didn't want to bring anyone into this mess. Ron was my only anchor, the only part of my life that still made sense. Months passed, but the pain didn't fade. I tried to distract myself with hobbies, going to the gym, and spending time with Ron whenever I could. But the scars were there, a constant reminder of how quickly life can unravel. I couldn't shake the feeling that Kathy had taken more than just my trust. She'd stolen my sense of stability, my faith in love, and even my financial future. In the end, I came to terms with a hard truth. My life as I knew it was gone. Kathy's betrayal didn't just break our marriage, it fractured every part of me. The woman I once loved, trusted, and built a family with had become a stranger. Even worse, her actions forced me into a life where I was constantly reminded of her, through custody exchanges, financial obligations, and the pain of seeing my son grow up in a divided home. I did everything I could to stay strong for Ron. Every time I saw him, I tried to give him my full attention, make him laugh, and create memories he could hold on to. But every visit ended with me handing him back to Kathy, watching him disappear into her house, the house I once called home. It felt like losing him all over again, every single time. Leaving the city often crossed my mind. Starting over somewhere new seemed like the only way to escape the shadow of my failed marriage. But I couldn't bring myself to leave Ron behind. No matter how painful it was to live in the same city as Kathy, seeing my son regularly was worth it. He didn't deserve to lose his father because of his mother's mistakes. I never spoke to Kathy again outside of what was necessary for Ron. She tried to apologize a few times, but her words felt empty. I didn't need her apologies. I needed the life she'd taken from me, and no amount of words could bring that back. Now, my days are quiet and lonely. I've stopped hoping for a happy ending, at least for myself. My focus is on giving Ron the best life I can, even if it means putting my own healing on hold. As much as I hate what Kathy did, I won't let it define my relationship with my son. He deserves better than that. Still, there are moments when the weight of everything feels unbearable. Nights when I wonder if I'll ever feel whole again, or if this is just the life I have to accept. A life shaped by someone else's selfishness and my own inability to see it coming. For now, all I can do is keep moving forward, one day at a time. Maybe someday the pain will dull, and I'll find a way to rebuild. But right now, it feels like I'm standing in the ruins of a life I'll never get back. If you found this story engaging or helpful, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Your support helps us share stories that resonate.